What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to look at Invisigal potentially one last time in Dispatch and talk about that twist that's in Episode 8. Really just want to do a video kind of deep diving, and this is, I feel like, a good place to leave it, right? With her, and maybe some other idea comes up in my head. And of course, if you guys have any ideas you want me to make videos on, you let me know. When you really think about it, she had that twist, the twist that I think a lot of people were kind of expecting. I've joked about it before, and look, I fell into the camp. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to lie to you. As the game was going, I really thought, okay, I'm believing this Invisigal stuff, right? There's something about her. She probably has something to do with Mecha Man, in the beginning of episode 1, but maybe not. And as the episodes went, it became, all right, I really kind of wanted to be Blonde Blazer just to really throw like a complete 180, right? Something you can't see coming. And look, ultimately, it's revealed in the last 20 minutes of the game, right? At the peak of insanity, by the way, right? I've talked multiple times now at the last hour of episode 8 is nuts. And a visual spectacle. It's so much fun to play. It's so much fun to watch. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of decisions. There's a lot of outcomes. I mean, it's a wild ride, right? Now, in that, you, of course, get that big twist. Now, that's the twist, I want to talk about in this video. So, as Shroud is kind of revealing his master plan, he's talking about that basically Invisigal was an undercover agent, the entire time, okay? And the response from Invisigal, I think, does add some weight. Was she really a double agent, right? And also, okay, I also want to talk about, was that necessary? Now, maybe let's start there because we can kind of inject maybe what was literally happening to help ourselves. Okay, so let's start there. Was it necessary? I would say no. I don't really think that's controversial. I have seen, I think, a lot of people that either called it A, and then B, weren't really a fan of how it unfolded. I think that's the thing to me. I mean, you guys definitely let me know in the comments, right, what you think about this. I think, I'm not going to speak for all of you. I'm only going to speak for me. For me, it was kind of just how, I guess two things. One is how it was revealed, because, while I make the jokes of, revealed in the chaos, I say it as a joke, but I also actually, I'm being legitimate. I'm being serious. I think it was moving so fast that is not the time to throw something like that in, because as I think has been pointed out by many people, including myself, I think I said it in the review, you kind of forget about it 5 seconds later because there's so much that's going on. You have to save your dog. You have a lot of stuff that's going on. It's the final confrontation with this ultimate villain that's able to predict everything, right? It's not the time. It's not the time because it feels like just that one more thing. And then I think it's how it was built, right? Because I think one thing I've seen kind of the pushback to people like me, maybe, right? People that were like, well, I'm not a huge fan. And then others will come in and say, well, didn't you think it was going to happen? And I've always said, right, and I want to say it here, I think there's a difference between thinking it was going to happen and then wanting it to kind of happen in a certain way. And for me, that's what I was disappointed in, is the way the journey was. It wasn't just about the destination. The destination was messy because it was just not, I think, a good time to reveal it. But also the journey, I think it took a couple turns we weren't necessarily expecting in the beginning when maybe we thought that this could be the situation. You know what I mean? And I think because it took those turns, doing this to Invisigal wasn't the right move. And so let me kind of elaborate with that. I would say really the biggest culprit is revealing just an episode before that she did do it. So I feel like they kind of double dipped. And I think that's the part that at least people that I've seen, I think, generally agree with that. Of course, again, you're very free to disagree with me. I don't block. I don't get rid of comments. So go off on me. But, I've seen a lot of that. I really have, where it's I think a lot of us were fine with that. I was fine with that, having her own up to it. I think it really completes kind of that arc in that moment where she always kind of showed signs of something was wrong. And, she's telling Robert, in the bar about trust and kind of owning up to who he is. And, in my choice, I told them I'm Mecha Man. And you could see it. I mean, they made so many, I think, deliberate points to show her face, right? To go to her. And it's you can almost get the sense where she's proud of Robert. She's happy for him that he was able to do that, but you know that there's something still that she's hiding, right? And that's another, see, that's a sign that I liked at that time, because I was like, yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. She's happy for you, but there's something in it where she wasn't just talking to you, she's talking to herself. She was talking to herself, and you owned up to it, or at least I did, in that moment, but she can't. Something's holding her back, right? So I think, in terms of her character development, loved that, right? I think that was very important for her. And then she does own up to it, and as I said before, like that's maybe my favorite Invisigal scene, despite the controversy of that locker room scene. I think that's my favorite scene with her, because she just goes through a lot. And as I've said, pointing out kind of, she wants you to look at her in the same way that you look at Blonde Blazer, in the hero way, in the ability to do good way, right? So, okay, all that stuff aside, she fesses up, right? So she does the bomb thing, or she talks about that, and it's like, all right, you're good, you're done. You owned up to it, and I believed her in that moment. And here's and again, I think eventually we're about to get to, like, so was she actually a double agent, right? We have talked about, like, was it the right time, or should they have done it? But was she actually one? Because so in that moment, she talks about planning the bomb, she quits, she joins the Z team, and then the rest is history, right? Here we are. Now, the way it's revealed is that basically she was under his control, or, she was working with him the entire time. Now, there are a few other times, of course, in these last 2 episodes where she's definitely doing some questionable things. I think the ultimate thing really is the Mecha Man part, right? Okay, it's why doesn't she want Robert to get to it? Is she doing it? And I think that's, for me, that's the biggest sticking point where, and I'll just say it, I know it's taken me 7 minutes, I really don't think she was a double agent. And it was actually pointed out to me, I want to read this. This was a comment on my review for episode 7 and 8, my spoiler cast. And it's The Real Dutch Idiot. That's a great name. And very respectful comment, all that jazz. Shroud is an established liar. The comic is very clear on the fact that Robert's father was shot once and only once, but Shroud needed to embellish the story to evoke a reaction. And I even said, but what do you think happened to the other bullets, or was he lying about the number of bullets? And this individual says, given the fact that Shroud essentially predicts the future, it's very possible he simply got rid of the bullets to make his story believable. If you don't glass the bartender, he still shoots him, saying something like, I'm surprised you let it go, I predicted otherwise, giving you an earlier hint we're dealing with Shroud. Now, when I played it, I took out the bartender, because I thought, you know what, Robert in that moment, I think he would let his emotions get the best of him, and that was my thinking. It's like, okay, I'm going to smash the glass, because I think in that moment, he probably can't contain himself. That was just me. So I actually did not see that. And, okay, the reason I wanted to bring that up, number one, I think that's a great, great comment, but also, like, I do want to focus on Shroud. I think a thing with the discussion on if Invisigal is a double agent, or, was it a good idea to make her one, you actually, it's not just her. You can look at her actions, and I think we have largely through 15 videos I've done, right? Again, the only thing that gets me with her is I could believe there were times where maybe she was supposed to be a double agent and she just flat out wasn't doing it. Maybe she was keeping Shroud, like, on the line, kind of updating him, but I really don't even think so with that. I really feel she was disconnected from that, and that wasn't, like, her point. You could maybe argue at times, like, maybe, and I do think the Mecha Man part was something that I think you could argue, and I mean, even in a way, she argued it, depending on the choices you make, with the conversations. She's doing it to protect you. Now, does that mean she's really willing to give the Mecha Man suit with the Astro Pulse, right, to Shroud, just to avoid Shroud going after Robert? And I think the answer is yes. Now, I'll be honest, okay, from my perspective, when I'm playing it, right, when I'm in that episode and she's telling me, that's the episode A, right, when you're tying her up or untying her, she talks about that. And in that moment, I thought, I trust her. I trust that her heart is in the right place. And, at that moment, of course, Shroud didn't reveal she's a double agent. So in that moment, I thought, okay, she's just like, her approach is wrong. Like, she's looking at it right, and her heart's in the right place. Like, she wants to protect you. She thinks the best way of doing that was, number one, deceiving you firstly with the Astro Pulse. She had it the whole time, okay? So that was kind of point one. And you know what? She was right about that. Because if she gives you the pulse, you're going to go to the bar, and he's going to take it from you in the bar when Blonde Blazer shows up. So she actually did predict that, outcome right. She nailed it. And then this Mecha Man thing, it's definitely there to sow distrust, right? You're supposed to think, oh, okay, something's off with her. Like, I'm not going to trust her. In that moment, I didn't think double agent. I simply thought she's looking at it wrong. She wants to protect you, yes, but her way of protecting you is to hijack Mecha Man and deliver it to the enemy so that he doesn't come after you. Okay, I mean, sweet of you to, eliminate Robert from that equation, but that's a terrible idea. That's how I saw it. Now, I guess you can say, looking back, this double agent thing, was there any sense of she was doing it for Shroud? And this is where I think they kind of blend, right? Because I think, does Shroud embellish? Does Shroud lie? I think I agree with that comment, in my video where, he is predicting at all times, right? So he's naturally going to do things to get a reaction from you so that, he can, well, I predicted that, right? Some things are easier to predict than others, right? And as people I think have talked about, and I probably want to do a video just on Shroud, down the line, the idea of one of those endings defeating him with giving him both, right? So he's got a 50-50 shot. The ultimate FU to a guy who can predict so well is to give them a literal even chance of getting it right or wrong, right? I think that is so brilliant, even though I don't completely love Shroud as a character, and we'll talk about that in a separate video. That's a great twist there. But anyway, regardless of that, but I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of, is Shroud kind of talking it up in that scene? I think yes. Is there maybe a part of it that's true? Yes. Do I also think it's kind of one of those cliche, but also works really well for the game, by the way, one of those moments where, or just kind of narratives where she's sent in, she's supposed to spy, she's supposed to hate Robert, right? She's supposed to, kind of relay everything back, and she falls for him. She falls for him and she says, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. And maybe she does that a few times, through those 8 episodes. Could it simply be that? I think the thing with that, because I did say it's cliche, I don't love that. I don't love that idea. Simply, again, I think for me it's that double dipping. It's, if you wanted to play around with that cliche, I would have bought it because there was, I think, enough evidence. I really think it's as simple as this, right? She gave you all the hints that there was something up. We talked about that, right? The bar. There's a couple times even before that. I'd say like episodes 1, 2, 3. There's times that that there's something else going on, all right? All you had to do, if you wanted to do the double agent, was when she does her apology in the locker room, or just tells you how it is, right? Tells you what she did. Swap what she did. She either planted the bomb or she's a double agent. And I mean, one of those might be more extreme. Like the bomb thing wasn't, to me, like I did choose the whole, you need to give me time, right? I've talked about that before. Because I just don't know if Robert would immediately say, oh, I forgive you. Like also in a split second. I do think he would eventually forgive her. But I also don't think he would just say, get the F out, like we're done. So I kind of chose the middle route, right? So I don't know, like, which one is the more impactful thing? Like, one is very personal, right? She destroyed his suit. She almost got him killed. She was the kind of final blow to him in that fight. He got away. He did escape, right? But then he didn't. So that's one outcome. The other is she could say, hey, Shroud actually recruited me and I've been working for him. I was supposed to work for him this entire time. And you know what? I felt really bad about it eventually. Actually, really quickly, I felt bad about it and I stopped. To me, you kind of do one of. Does that make sense? To me, you do one of those. You can't do both. You can't do the bomb, and then also it's revealed in a split-second thing that, oh, not only did she do that, but she's also now working. Well, not even now working for me. She's always been working for me. I just don't think you can do that. I mean, I'm not the. I'm not the police. I'm not telling them exactly how to make. But look, it's a critique. It's something that you probably should look at these kind of receptions from it and say, were there things that were just not received well from the audience or just kind of unnecessary? Was it something you absolutely had to do? I think at the point of her fessing up to what she did in the beginning, you didn't have to have the double agent storyline. You didn't have to have that double thing. But I guess there are a couple ways of looking at it. You really can look at it that maybe she was working with him the whole time. There's a couple times that do pop out at you, I guess, where it's like, okay, I can see it, I guess. I always kind of infer different things from those scenes, versus maybe what was actually happening, right? And again, it just happens so fast. And then ultimately, because I don't love that either. I guess maybe that again goes more into Shroud. So he's so confident that she works for him, right? And that's another thing. Maybe we can focus on that just really quickly before I end the video here, because maybe it does play a part, right? So she's a double agent, and Shroud is so confident in that, and yet she disappears. He didn't predict at all. He didn't predict at all that she could even have a chance of betraying him, even though she's the most unpredictable person on the planet, right? He never thought that, and again, maybe that's more of an element of like kind of a weakness of Shroud, like this kind of overconfidence, and I'm sure I'll bring this back up when I talk about Shroud in a video, but I don't know, like, does that hurt or help the idea that she was a double agent, right? Because he says she is, and she immediately betrays. I mean, no matter what, right? I mean, any ending you get, either she takes him out, and even when she takes him out, by the way, he's so confident. He's so confident she's not going to do anything, even though he's so weak in that moment, and she's totally mad at him, right? Why would he even think that? And then the only other ending that can happen from that situation, of course, right, is that she takes the bullet for you. And it's like, maybe you couldn't have predicted her taking a bullet. Maybe you could have predicted her doing something else, but not that. I don't know. But like, does that help or hurt her being a double agent? I will tell you, I think it hurts it. Because if you're so confident in the double agent thing, has he not been paying attention to how she's acted with Robert the entire time? Does he not know that, I guess? Maybe she hid that. I guess there are layers. I mean, I think, as we talked about with certain characters, like a blonde blazer, some things actually are quite straightforward in this game, narratively. And I actually kind of really like that, because I think you need that sometimes with these games. Something like this, I feel, is kind of just that extra level of like trying to do like one extra thing, make it a complex. That's the word. I keep trying to like figure out what word I'm trying to use. The complexity does not need to be used here. This is not the time, I think, to throw in that. And I think it actually only makes it more confusing. So I would like, by the way, that comment I read, I would like to just kind of fully embrace that and believe that Shroud sometimes embellishes, that Shroud is trying to get you off your game. I think it does get them off their game for just a split second when he does that. A split second is all the game lets you, get off your game until you're into the next scene. But, maybe that was the plan. Maybe that, but at the same time, she does look guilty. Like in that moment when she's looking like left and right and she goes invisible, she does look guilty. And it's like, all right, I mean, were they trying something there? But then you think about like how the scene plays out. She's on the ground. She immediately gets up next to you. Like, that's her next move, is to help you. Whether it's taking out Shroud or it's taking a bullet for you, one of those two things is the next thing that she does. So I don't know. Is she that embarrassed? And by the way, everybody embraces her directly after, or at least in the good ending, right, where she's not an anti-hero. Everybody embraces her, and it's like, well, you were told, I think 30 seconds ago, that she was deceiving you the whole time, unless they don't believe it either. Maybe they, like in the lore, they're like, or it's either not a big deal, everybody betrays each other in this world, or because we're all villains, or he was just lying, and hey, you did us a solid with what you just did, for Robert. I don't know. I think it was a bit unnecessary is also the thing. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.